what is up guys, it is Slikk here. I'm back again with another video. In this one, doing a highly requested video. If you're unaware, I made a video a while back, future Marvel video games that I would like to see. And that video was very well received, and in the comments was just a ton of people asking for me to do the same exact thing for DC Comics. Indeed, that is what I'm doing right here. I'm going to pitch my ideal game for 3 DC characters, just like I did for Iron Man and for the Punisher. If you want to check out that video, the link will be in the description below. But let's talk about DC characters that I want to have video games for in the future. These are not necessarily announced or leaked or anything. It's just games that I want personally. Keep in mind as well that this list was harder for me personally to make, okay? You have to consider that DC heroes, generally speaking, are more powerful than Marvel heroes. That might upset some people, but it's sort of an objective fact, at least in the Justice League versus the Avengers. So when we're looking at somebody like The Flash or Superman, it's not easy to make a game for these characters. Just look at all of the terrible Superman games that there are as evidence for that, right? So even though I really do want a Flash game, I put that on my list anyway. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. Just do keep that in mind, that these games are not necessarily the easiest to make, and they're not necessarily commercially viable. So that's another thing I excluded, right? And there are heroes that I would love to see and I'm a huge fan of, but they may not ever do because they're not popular enough. At the same point, there are Titans games out right now. There's all sorts of games that feature obscure superheroes. There's also, video games that feature very popular ones like Batman Arkham. So really, I think anything is possible, especially with DC and Marvel announcing that there's so many video games that we don't even know about yet that they're still making. So let's talk about the first superhero on my list that I want to see a video game for on their own, and that is a Nightwing video game. And let it be known that for each of these games that I list, I intend on them being within the same universe as the Arkhamverse, effectively creating a DC video game extended universe, right? So I want the Nightwing and the Nightwing game to be from the Batman Arkham games. I think that is the best for consistency, and the DC video game extended universe is something I've been an advocate for a long, long time, and excluding the Injustice games, of course. But other than that, I want everything to be clumped together in one coherent canon universe. So let's also consider that this Arkhamverse, or this game, is going to take place in the Arkhamverse. So it's the Dick Grayson from the Arkhamverse. It would take place in his prime, and it would occur in Bloodhaven, not Gotham. And this game would be definitely a lot about showing the distinct differences between Batman and Dick Grayson. I would do that partially by, if it were up to me, no Batman villains, okay? And it was just so sad. I just Googled just to, be curious about it, like Nightwing villains, right? And you look it up and like it's Deathstroke and just other Batman villains, which I think is really, really lame. And Nightwing has some own villains that are pretty cool of his own. I would also include primarily Talon, who is a new Rebirth creation and has been excellent in the Nightwing series. That arc is actually now finished, but that is what I would do and really differentiate this game from Batman. Not only that, but in regards to his playstyle. So his playstyle in the Arkham games is pretty much just like Batman's, except he doesn't have as many gadgets. I would change that drastically. I would make his playstyle far more, just developed and distinct from Batman's. I would also have a lot of new gadgets for him, as he is a protector of his city of his own. So that's a whole new thing, and he's not a sidekick anymore, right? And this is Nightwing in his prime, defending Bloodhaven. And also, this is where some of you might not like it and my fanboyism comes through, is that I would feature very heavily as well Batgirl. Now, there's issues with this and how I would introduce this, because my idea and my dream Nightwing game involves Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon patrolling together and fighting crime together, but as a couple, so as boyfriend and girlfriend. I do believe they're one of the greatest comic book couples of all time. Again, the problem I just restricted myself to, this takes place in the Arkhamverse, where Barbara Gordon and Tim Drake have this, thing for each other. Just holding in the vomit in my mouth right now. But anyway, so that is something that you have to consider. So I guess maybe at the end of the game they have a falling out, because this is actually a prequel to Batman Arkham Knight, which explains why Barbara Gordon is Batgirl. Okay, so this takes place in Bloodhaven, and Barbara Gordon is involved as well. It would expand heavily on the dual play features, and not only that, but this game would be drastically different from the Arkham games in one major way. Not only would the game take place over multiple days, but it would also have flashbacks to Dick Grayson's childhood in playable moments. So much like we see in Batman Arkham Asylum, when you can play as Bruce Wayne in the alley scene and the Scarecrow gas and all that sort of stuff. I would actually have a mission where you're not intoxicated or anything, or you're fully playing in a flashback memory through Dick Grayson's performance in a circus. So, you're pressing quick time events and you are performing in the circus. As many of you know, he was a part of the circus as a young child. And just play through those moments of him as a kid. I would also flash back to some of the most well-known Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson moments. Of course, primarily throughout the game, you're playing as Nightwing, because it's a Nightwing game. However, Barbara Gordon would be heavily playable in a solo sense and also in a dual play perspective. I would also have co-op sections of the game where you can play with another friend, which is how I feel that the co-op should have worked in Batman Arkham Knight, so I would do that as well in the game. But in terms of Barbara Gordon's involvement in the game, I would also have flashbacks to their first date, Birds of Prey number 8, written by Chuck Dixon, one of the most well-known Birds of Prey comics of all time. I would portray that in the game as well, and things like that. So it would really be a portrayal of Dick Grayson's life as a whole. It would be about the character of Dick Grayson and Nightwing, and not just a game where you go from here to here to here and beat people up here and beat people up here and then, eventually defeat the bad guy. Of course, there's bad guys in the game, but as I mentioned, we're not going to have somebody like Deathstroke, somebody, smaller people like Paragon or a villain like this. So really a lot of the game is going to have that main current arc, but also, almost like an hour, maybe a little over an hour of gameplay, significant gameplay, where you're playing through Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson's first date and his, experience in the circus and just life events and in the Batcave with Batman and Tim and Barbara training and that sort of thing. So those sort of moments, I feel, have been a little bit lacking from the Arkham games, and we could use a lot more as just those flashback moments and getting behind the characters just a little bit, and that's what I would really push in that game. It would be very linear, free roaming allowed, of course, but it would be linear in the sense of how those story beats are played out, and I would also have side missions that are actually, integral to the story. So I think in many ways it will feel a lot like an Arkham game, but have a personal touch to it. So I think that is really what I would pitch for the Nightwing game, but it'll also be an intimate love story in its own way between Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon, which I think is really, really important to see, because Tim Drake, no, that's not happening. So yeah, as I said, I'm going to stick to my pitch here. I've got to keep it loyal to the Arkham game. So again, maybe they have some splitting up or whatever, because it is a prequel to Arkham Knight. So again, I'm just reading Nightwing Rebirth, and my favorite issues in the book are when Barbara Gordon is involved. This isn't just me, I am a huge fan of the character, of course, but other people are saying this as well. I think they have a really, really interesting chemistry, but not just teaming up as, ex-lovers or whatever, but as actual, boyfriend and girlfriend, and the dynamic that brings, where you're protective of, the other person, that sort of thing. So it would definitely have gameplay elements of that sort, and maybe at the very end we can have a nice little Batman cameo appearance, and you have the Bat family trinity of, Nightwing. Some people would say it would be Nightwing, Robin, and Batman. I would say probably Nightwing, Batgirl, and Batman, depending upon who the Batgirl is. In this case, Barbara Gordon, because, this is the Arkhamverse, and she is the only Batgirl in the Arkhamverse, and I'm very appreciative of that. Okay, so that is my pitch for the Nightwing game. Let's talk about the second hero on my list, which you may have seen some GTA mods for and stuff like that. All very interesting, and that is a Flash video game. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this commentary, it is challenging, unequivocally, to make a Flash game. You just cannot deny that is the case. But there are ways that you can do it in a way without depowering the character too much. Now, a part of it, yes, fact, you will have to depower the Flash from how he is in the comics. Period. If you think otherwise, I'm sorry, you're wrong. There's no way you can portray the Flash at his full power in a video game. It is impossible, because you have, as a game designer, to make a map that is somewhat limited in scale and size and that sort of thing. Exactly. Perfect example. I was reading Rebirth the other day. Titans number 5. Wally West as the Flash, so not Barry Allen, which this game would feature Barry Allen, by the way. But Wally West runs across the continental United States to California and back to the East Coast in less than 6 seconds. Okay, that's 6,000 miles in total from one side to the other in 5 seconds. Okay, again, if you're making a video game, you have to create a map that is condensed. So the way that you can do it is by slowing down the environment around you. And actually, there's a game called DC Universe Online, which many of you may have heard of, where it does portray the Flash. He doesn't run all that fast, but you still feel like a speedster when you're playing. Combine that when you're running at the fastest speed the game will permit you, and slow down the environment around you, but you're still running super fast, but everything around you is going in slow-mo. I think that is a awesome remedy and solution to that problem. And I would open up also Central City to, suburban areas, and I was thinking like deserts. There's not really deserts around Central City, so, like wooded areas or maybe open fields and just stuff like that. Try to make the open world as fast as possible, because it has to be. There is no other way to make a Flash game without creating the largest open world we have ever seen. Period. He's so fast. I mean, you just can't even understand it. Sorry, the mic was loud there. Okay, so anyway, my game would also star Abracadabra, who is my favorite Flash villain, and also Wally West would be a part of it, much like the Nightwing and Batgirl game. However, he would not be throughout the whole game as I was intending. The Batgirl thing, where she probably shows up, like a third of the way throughout the remainder of it, right? Here with the Flash game, Wally West, he appears in it as Kid Flash, not as the Flash himself, but as Kid Flash, and Abracadabra is a main villain of not only Wally West, but also Barry Allen, and the game would star Barry Allen as the Flash. So, massively open world, as I mentioned. It would occur in Central City, the home city of Barry Allen, most often portrayed. And I would also include, potentially, I'm just thinking about this, what could be cool is in the game series called Infamous, where you can sort of, make choices about, like, do you help this person, do you not help this person, what sort of hero are you? I think that feature works really well in the Batman the Telltale series. I would maybe have that a little bit from time to time in the Flash. Now, in Infamous, you can choose whether or not to be a villain or a good guy. Not happening, okay? So, it's more on rails than that. You're Barry Allen, you're a good guy, period. But, what sort of good guy are you? I think I would have choices like that, and maybe do something like in Black Ops 2, for instance, story, where there's a few choices that you can make, much like in a Telltale game. I would maybe have stuff like that from time to time. Again, we're not making a Telltale Flash game here, but certainly just like some choices from time to time. I think that would be really interesting. Because the Flash is definitely one of those heroes that means something different to everybody. So that is my pitch for a Flash video game. Again, there would be some logistical challenges to making the game, but I think it could be one of the most fun. In terms of gameplay, which I think interests a lot of people, for me, again, just have the environment slow down around you when you're running at the fastest speeds, and create villains and sort of not main bosses, because again, in my game, the main villain would be Abracadabra, but have sort of semi-boss battles, throughout the time that are challenging, that you can't just beat randomly. So you maybe have to work together with Wally, or whether it be just like you have to, learn some combos, and it takes some input of skill, because otherwise it could very quickly be this thing where, like, okay, these people are all really easy to beat up because the Flash, you know what I mean? So there's definitely other speedster villains that they could create, right? And Abracadabra can pretty much wish up anybody that he wants, okay? So that's why I chose him as the villain, because it makes a lot of sense. He can just wish up speedsters, boom, just literally right in the flick of a wand. And speedsters can appear that actually face a challenge to the character that you have to combat. So I think that would be really, really awesome. And I think they could really make a Flash game. Maybe not the one that I just pitched for you, but I really think they could make one in general. And again, the logistics are going to be the hardest part, but the gameplay could be really fun and engaging and liberating, right? I mean, even in DC Universe Online, I love just running up a skyscraper and jumping off as a speedster. It's just fun. I love playing that game, and it's a really liberating feeling. I think they could do the same exact thing in an actual AAA Flash game. Okay, guys, last game on my list is one that I think they really, really could do, and maybe out of the three, actually the most likely that we will see with the success of the CW television show. Not as of late in the last few seasons, but general popularity. But here's the thing about my Green Arrow game. My Green Arrow game is not going to feature Arrow from the TV show at all. If you're making a Green Arrow game, I want to see a Green Arrow game from the comics. Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, the jovial, upbeat guy that's not like Batman that shoots arrows, which is pretty much like in the show from what I've heard. I haven't seen even an episode of it, but that's what I saw. I mean, he got the deep voice going too, and it's just kind of laughable, to be honest with you, especially as somebody that is a pretty big fan of the comic book character. I'm not a super fan or anything, but I like the character, right? And that's why I want to see a game for him. And here's the thing about this game as well, is that I think that you could really show the duality of Oliver Queen's identity as a super rich guy and as Green Arrow. So again, unlike what we've seen maybe in the Arkham games, which I don't mean to throw under the bus, obviously the best superhero video games ever made, period, no debate, but I do think that there is a problem with some of those games where it feels almost a little bit too Batman-y, right? You read a Batman comic book, it's like 60% Batman, 40% Bruce Wayne, and an Arkham game is 99% Batman, 1% Bruce Wayne, like Arkham City. I think that's an issue for future Batman games, all superhero video games. They have to show, at this point in the modern era, the duality of those characters. So, have Oliver Queen go to, big events and that sort of thing, which I always have loved to see in Bruce Wayne, in Batman the Telltale series. I think that has worked really, really well. And, still, I'm not saying don't make it a superhero game or make it 60-40, even just 90-10. Put a little bit of the man behind the mask, and that's what I would do with the Green Arrow game as well. So, as I said, we're not doing Oliver Queen from, the CW. We're doing the real Green Arrow, the real deal. Jovial, fun, dating Black Canary, of course, in the game. Maybe playable, maybe not. I don't know how you do that, but have her in the game as his significant other, because she is very, very important to Oliver Queen lore. So I would also have his apartment in the middle of Star City, not Seattle like we've seen in Rebirth, in Star City. And at his apartment at the very top floor, have his apartment. I would have that be, fully free roamable. I would also have side missions that you can choose whether or not to go to. Moreover, interestingly, I would also include, as I mentioned, going on with, choose whether or not to be Oliver Queen, that sort of thing. A system somewhat like GTA where you can get in your car and, drive to certain things. So, again, drive to, like a press event, or drive to this place or that place to meet this person or that person, and really, grant you control over that side of his life, because that is very important to to Green Arrow, the Oliver Queen side of things, who is the philanthropist and the billionaire that is very giving, very, very, just he wants to help out the poor, and he's just sort of some people have described him as a social justice warrior. I would probably agree. He does fight for social justice, and again, one of the greatest ironies of his life is that he lives in a multi-million-dollar apartment and is a billionaire, and there's people on the side street that he drives by and just from day to day that are starving, but still he's committed to philanthropy. At the end of the game, I would probably have a feature from the Birds of Prey, because I said Black Canary is going to be in the game, so the Birds of Prey features Huntress, Batgirl, again, Batgirl from the Arkham franchise, also from the Nightwing game, so everything hopefully ties together, and that's very crucial to me personally, because the building block for the video game extended universe is already there with the Arkham games, these amazing games with some continuity issues, no doubt about it, that are forgivable, okay? And with the DC video game universe, you can have the Flash and Green Arrow make reference of events that happen in, the Batman Arkham games, about a Scarecrow trying to gas the whole city, and just stuff like that. I think really can expand upon the lore that we have already in the Batman Arkhamverse, and everybody already loves the Batman Arkhamverse. Expand upon that a little bit further with the DC video game extended universe, introduce characters like the Flash and Green Arrow and Superman a little bit maybe, and I would love to see a Superman game, but I'm just taking it one step at a time. I know I'm being very ambitious in this commentary, and I'm not the one making the games, okay? So I'm just the one, shooting shit behind a camera. And these people actually have to make them, and make them under a certain amount of money within budget, and it's very, very challenging. Which leads me to my next point about the Green Arrow game. Maybe the most viable out of all that I've read, right? Because you can have stealth and combat comparable to what we have in the Arkham games. Now, Oliver Queen, he's not the best fighter. He's not, he's MMA trained, and maybe not MMA, but, martial arts. He knows martial arts. He's not an expert, not nearly as good of a hand-to-hand fighter as Bruce Wayne or Batman, and we actually talked about in the Discord against Hawkeye, the Marvel character, of course. He probably couldn't beat Hawkeye in hand-to-hand combat, okay? Hawkeye is pretty good with hand-to-hand combat, as we've seen, whereas Oliver Queen really is not, but Oliver Queen is a better shot. So have, of course, him shooting green arrows. I would hope that's a gimme. And have combat, but not be as powerful as Batman, where you're gliding across the street in Arkham Knight. And people complain about that, how it's unrealistic. I love that shit, because, I don't know, I just love playing as an OP Batman, me personally. But some people didn't like that, and this game, indeed, the combat that, you can't knock people out in just 2 punches. You've got to work through them a little bit more, because you're not a martial arts expert by any stretch of the imagination, but you've got a good shot. Okay, so definitely introduce those aspects as well, and introduce Black Canary in some playable moments as well, who would be a very fulfilling character to play as with her canary cry, if I may say so myself, and I hope that we do see her in Injustice 2. Okay, guys, I hope you all have enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts on this video in the comment section below. Would you like to see a Nightwing, a Flash, or a Green Arrow game? And let me know what games you would like to see from the DC video game universe, if it's even a thing. That's something I've made up at this point. Yeah, if anything you want to see, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for joining me. I have, in my personal opinion, one of the best subscriber bases on YouTube. I do mean that very genuinely. I just love having a subscriber base that is interested in the same things that I am, and that is, superhero video games. And I'm just so enthralled to, try to bring you guys, the news and the leaks and all that sort of thing as often as I can, uploading daily, but also just give my opinions and make fun videos like this every once in a while. Okay, I hope you guys have enjoyed. We'll see you all in the next one.